The Irish Cabin by Patrick Bronte. Should poverty, modest and clean, please when presented to view, should cabin on brown heath or green disclose aught engaging to you, should Erin's wild harp soothe the ear when touching by such fingers as mine, when kindly attentive draw near and candidly ponder each line. One day when December keen brief arrested with sweet running rill, and nature seemed frozen in the depth, I thoughtfully strode over the hill, where mustering clouds were afrown, the mountains were covered with snow, and winter his mantle of brown had spread over the landscape below. Thick rattling the footsteps were heard, of pigeon far down the vale. From lakes, brooks, martially bird, the wild fowl aloft in the gale, loud gabbling and screaming were born, whilst thundering guns hailed the day, and far saw the thicket forlorn, or wounded ran over the way. No music was heard in the grove. The blackbird and linnet and thrush and goldfinch and sweet cooing dove sat pensively mute in the bush. The leaves that once wore the green shade lay withered in the heaps on the ground. Chill winter through grove, wood, and glade spread sad desolation around. But now the keen north wind 'gan whistle, and gusty swept over the sky. Each hair, frozen, stood like a bristle, and night thicked fast on the eye. And swift wheeling eddies with snow fell mingling and rifting anon, and soon all distinction laid low, as wind it covered the plain. A light its pale ray faintly shot, the snowflakes its splendour had shorn. It came from a neighbouring cot, small court at the cabin of morn. A neat Irish cabin, snowproof, well fetched, had a good earthen floor, one chimney in midst of a roof, one window and one latched door. Escaped from the pitiless storm, I entered the humble retreat. Compact was the building and warm, its furniture simple and neat, and now, gentle reader, approach, the ardour that glowed in each breast, as kindly our cottagers strove to cherish and welcome their guest. The dame nimble rose from a well, and brushed off the powdery snow. Her daughter, forsaken Maria, ran briskly the cinder to blow. The children, who sat on the hearth, leaped up without murmur or frown, and oaken stool quickly brought forth, and smiling bade me sit down. Whilst grateful sensation of joy over all my found bosom were poured, resumed was each former employ, and gave thrifty order restored. Her blaze flickered up to the crook, her reel clinked again by the door, the dame turned her wheel in the knock, and frisked the street babes around the floor. Released from the toils of a barn, his thrifty, blithe wife hailed the seer, and hanging his fale by her van, he drew up her stool to the fire, when smoothing his brow with his hand, as if he would sweep away sorrow, he says, "Let us keep God's command, and never take thought for the morrow." Brisk turning him round with a smile, and freedom unblended by art, and affable manners and style thought simple, but reached to my heart. He said, whilst of ardour he glowed, "Kind sir, we are poor, yet we're blessed. We're all in the steep, narrow road that leads to the city of rest. 'Tis true, I must toil all the day, and oft suffer cold through the night, through silvern all over the grey, and dimly declining my sight. And sometimes our raiment at the foot are scanty, scanty indeed, but all work together for good, so in my blessed Bible I read. I also have seen in that book, perhaps you can tell me the place, how God on poor sinners does look, in pity, and gives them his grace, gives them his grace and worth store, sufficient to help them quite through tough troubles should whelm them all over, and sure this sweet promise is true. Yes, true as the snow blows without, and winds whistle keen through the air, as grace can remove every doubt, and chase the black gloom of despair, and often supports my weak mind, and wipes the salt tears from my eye, and tells me that Jesus is kind, and died for such sinners as I. I once rode in wealth without grace, but happiness never was my loot, till Christ freely betide my case. And now I am blessed in a cot, well knowing things earthly are vain, where troubles never passed my head, convinced that to die will be gain. I look on the grave as my bed. I look on the grave as my bed, where I'll sleep the swift hours away, till wake from their slumbers, the dead shall rise, never more to decay. When I, with my children and wife, shall get a bright palace above, and endlessly clothing with life, shall dwell in the Eden of love. But now, gentle stranger, through poor, we are cheerful, contented, and blessed. For princes should pass by our door, kind Jesus is ever our guest. We feel and we taste and receive the pleasures which flow from our Lord, and fearless and wealthy and free, we live on the joys of his word. He cheesed, and a big tear of joy rolled glittering down to the ground, whilst all, having dropped their employ, were buried in silence profound. A sweet solemn pause long ensued, each bosom overflowed with delight, when heavenly converse renewed beguiled the dull season of night. We talked of a rough, narrow way that leads to the kingdom of rest. We said, we stood us away, the king in his holiness dressed, even Jesus, the crucified king, whose blood and rich crimson does flow, clean washing the crimson of sin, and rinsing in withered snow. But later and later it's worrying, and supper we cheerful bring, the meat and potato and herring, and water just fresh from the spring. We press and we smile. We sit down, first praying the Father of love, our table with blessing to crown, and feed us with bread from above. The wealthy and blooded may sneer, and sink over luxury dishes, and loaf the poor cottager's chair, and melt in the heave of her wishes, but luxury sons are unblessed, a prey to each giddy desire, and hence where they never know rest, may sink in unquenchable fire. Not so. The poor cottager's lute, who travels the Zion-ward road, he's blessed in his neat little coat. He riches in the favour of God, by faith his moored very wave, but rolls on the sea of distress. Triumphant he drives in the grave, to rise on the ocean of bliss. The supper is over and we raise our prayers to the Father of light, and joyfully hymn his praise. We lovingly bid the good night. The ground's white, the sky's cloudless blue, the breeze flutters keen through the air, the stars twinkle bright on my view, as I to my mansion repair. All peace, my dear cottage, be thin. Nor think what I treat you with scorn. Whoever reads verses of mine should hear of a cabin of Morny, and had I but musical strains, through humble and mean in your station, you should smile while the world remains, the pride of a fair Irish nation. In friendship, fair Erin, you glow. Offended, you quickly forgive. Your courage is known to each foe. Yet foes on your bounty might live. Some faults you, however, must own. Dissensions, impetuous zeal, and wild prodigality grown. Too big for your income and weal. Ah, Erin, if you would be great, and happy, and wealthy, and wise, and tremble your sorrows elate, contented for a cottager's price, so error and vice should decay, and cannot add bliss to renown, and you should gleam brighter than day, the gem of a fair British crown.